So I turned my computer on, and the first thing I saw was a tweet from Woj, and we've got our second trade of the season. Jeff Teague and Treveon Graham for Alan Crabbe. Everyone involved here is on an expiring contract. Graham is not on a rookie deal. He's unrestricted after this season. And this move is not big enough to do 2 videos on, so it's all just going to be in here. So I think we should start with Atlanta. So Atlanta taking back Jeff Teague, and it seems that this is one of their get a veteran around Trae Young moves. And they chose a point guard who defensively is not exactly good to pair up with a point guard who defensively is not exactly good. But I guess the optimistic side of this is they get another competent offensive player and a ball handler who can, I would assume, sometimes play with Trae Young and give the Hawks a decent amount of speed and ball handling. And, you know, Jeff Teague's best days are probably behind him, but you figure he can still make an open three-pointer, even if he doesn't take too many threes. And you can also have Teague play backup for Trae Young, because when Trae Young is not in the game, the Hawks' offense is horrible. It's like, whatever it is, like a 99 offensive rating or something. Actually, for the whole season, it's even worse. It's a 91 offensive rating. If I do the last 10 games, it's an 87, so there you go. Okay, I guess that's the rationale for doing this if you're Atlanta. And then I would imagine that they hope to re-sign Jeff Teague after this season, which I don't think is insane because they have a lot of cap space. And they're probably not going to have to sign him to 19. Like, maybe you could sign him to a 3-year deal where you're paying him, I don't know, like $36 million over the 3 years, and the last year is non-guaranteed. Like, that's not a ridiculous contract for a solid, well, we'll say average, competent, over 30-year-old point guard. And I would imagine Teague can have a pretty good pick-and-roll combination with John Collins when he plays with him. This could also open up more opportunities for Trae Young to play off the ball. Zach Lowe pointed that out, that Trae hasn't really done that a lot, but you could also argue that it hasn't really been the ball handling or the playmaking around him to be able to do that, you know? And Jeff Teague is good enough to get Trae Young the ball, and, you know, the defense still has to care about Teague, and Teague can still beat somebody off the dribble, usually off of a pick and roll or like attacking a closeout. He can't really do it in ISO like that, but it's still better than just having a whole bunch of stationary guys and then John Collins around Trae Young. Could Teague also have some pick and roll thing going on with like Alex Len, the second units? Yeah, potentially. And then between Herter and Cam Reddish and all these guys, like, they can profit off of Teague as well. So there's definitely an avenue for this working out well for Atlanta. The way this doesn't work out is if they do want to play Trae and Jeff Teague together and they're really bad on defense together. But you could argue, well, you can't argue, it's a fact. They're already terrible defensively when Trae Young's in the game. So maybe they're just like, screw it, we're already going to suck when he's in there on defense. We might as well just add up more offense and we'll just score more when Trae Young's already in the game. So, okay, cool. And if it doesn't work out, I mean, there's no real harm in it because it's not like you traded anything that valuable. Well, maybe. I mean, maybe you could have got something better for that Alan Crabbe expiring contract if they just simply would have waited a little bit longer. But at the same time, they still have 2 more expirings in Evan Turner and Chandler Parsons, so you could make other moves with those deals. They didn't trade any picks in this thing or anything. I guess another way this could not work out well for them is if they re-sign Teague and then he's just bad a year from now, because he's already starting to trend in the wrong direction. He's had moments this year, but lately he's been pretty bad, like the last 6 or 7 games or whatever. And you do all that, like you give him a contract and then he's not good, and you could have just signed some random competent backup point guard for less money on the open market, because again, they have a lot of cap space this upcoming season, but they were clearly looking for something to help out the moment and then hopefully hold them over past this season. So we'll see. I mean, it's a move. And as far as Treveon Graham, I've got no idea. The guy's played 16 minutes a game in 4 years. on 3 different teams, so I don't know. If we talk about this from Minnesota's side, so for the Wolves, I think this is like halfway a basketball move and halfway a money move. The money side of this is they could just want to move Crabbe's contract. There's kind of weird rules. It's like you can trade him, but if you package him together, then you have to wait because you just traded for him. I don't remember the exact day of the deadline, so whatever. I'm sure they've got some sort of plan. But is it crazy to believe they could just use Allen Crabbe? I mean, he was a really good shooter before this season, pretty much. The guy shot like 37, 38% on about 6 or 7 threes a game for about 2 years. And to go with that, I think this is going to be an opportunity for Wiggins and Culver to get more ball handling opportunities, because Wiggins was better earlier in the season when he was not technically the point guard, but he was more so the point guard or whatever. And then Culver has shown some ball handling stuff as well. When Towns is eventually healthy, which who the hell knows, but when he is back and playing, the Wolves could actually have like a decent amount of spacing around Jarrett Culver and Andrew Wiggins. Now, granted, Culver and Wiggins themselves are not the greatest floor spaces in the world, especially Culver. But, you know, like this could be a lineup they roll out. You could go Wiggins at point guard, Covington, Towns, Crabbe, assuming Crabbe is still making shots. And then, you have one non-shooter potentially in a Kogi or Culver, or you could go with Shabazz, who's been a little better. Granted, he's not the biggest dude in the world to play off guard. Although you could just have Wiggins then defend the other guard, whatever. But the other thing is when Jake Layman is eventually healthy, which who the hell knows with that one, but if he's healthy, you could actually have 4 shooters out there around Wiggins, which is probably the optimal thing for a point guard Andrew Wiggins situation. So I think that's kind of interesting because, again, this is something I said in the offseason. I said, we're probably going to see some point guard Andrew Wiggins. We did see it. Teague came back, and now it's kind of hasn't really been as much of a thing. Wiggins has dipped in the past month or so. So this could be an opportunity for the Wolves to just go all in on Wiggins as the primary ball handler. And Culver can get some more opportunity too, and maybe it'll work out. And if it doesn't work out, then I don't know, you gave up Jeff Teague, okay, whatever. And again, they still could move Crabbe's contract if something else becomes available. But another thing to look at is would they re-sign Allen Crabbe? Well, they're at $106 million in salary after this season. You add maybe $6 million or so, depending on where their draft pick falls. So then it's 112. I mean, if you could re-sign Crabbe to, I don't know, $6 million a season, then I don't think it'd be ridiculous. And maybe a little bit more than that. You might have to, but I think it just depends on how good of a floor spacer Crabbe is. If he walks in and he's just nailing threes, which we have to remember is possible. I know we've forgotten about this dude being a decent player, but he is a decent player on his best day. Then, okay, then you got another guy, and Minnesota needs as many decent guys as they can get. So, another little subplot is Shabazz Napier had a really good 4-game stretch for the Wolves recently, where he had over 20 a game each game. And maybe they believe that if Napier gets more minutes, he can go nuts and be just as good, if not better, than Teague. And they still picked up a shooter or a trade asset in Crabbe. And I believe they also free up a roster spot because this is a 2-for-1 deal. So, yeah, that's about all I got.